So yeah, thank you so much for doing this. You know, one of the things that actually I see as a huge upside to this crisis is all of the innovation that's coming out, and I'm excited to hear about everything that's happening with everybody else who's been on this webinar. So this is a uplifting thing, I think. So I'm going to try to be uplifting, but this is cybersecurity, so I don't want to. I have worked so hard throughout my career, as I know all of my colleagues have, not to do fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I don't mean to contribute to that. But I also am a very strong believer that we must deal with the reality. Like, radical acceptance of the reality of where things are is the only way that we can come up with a clear plan about what we're going to do. So today, I am representing Otix. Is an Israeli company with presence here in the United States, and they are part of the alliance. And also we have some of the executives from Otix are also on the call, listening on the call. So I'm going to go through a presentation. It's an extract with a slight modification of what we presented at the Civic Lab in February. So there's a very detailed presentation about Otix there, and if people want to see the more in-depth presentation, I would encourage you to either contact me if you need more information, or go back to the presentation that's in the files with the Alliance, and you can see them there. So where are we? Well, let's talk about kind of where we were a month ago. Where we were a month ago was cybercrime was, if cybercrime were a nation state, it'd be the 13th largest GDP in the world. It generates over $1.5 trillion of revenue for the cybercrime community, whatever that might be. And that includes not only, you know, enterprises, criminal enterprises, it includes nation states. And one of the things I think probably is a byline of everyone in the cybercrime community is that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And the reason for that is that as we take our complex infrastructures and we have to adapt them rapidly to a completely new normal, we are going to introduce openings inadvertently that they are expert at finding. And so if you take a look at where we are, what has changed since a month ago? And I would say from a cybersecurity positioning, almost everything. And the reason I say that is because, especially in the context of critical infrastructure, public services, municipalities, the disadvantage that we're working with is we're not highly funded like a major bank. And I'll tell you that even the major banks are all hands on deck to deal with this change in order to make sure that they don't open up some kind of a vector for cyber criminals to come into the enterprise. So when we have limited resources to do that, and we have things in place that are mostly done under the best of circumstances, when crisis happens and normal operations are shifted, then we have some serious concerns in place. What I hope to share with you is some good news about that, but I want to make sure that we understand where this problem is coming from. So for example, our work from home strategy. Now our mayor, Denver's mayor, just issued a stay-at-home order in the last hour. We have people who all except critical services are being ordered to, you know, work from home. When we have that happen, we have all of a sudden shifted the bulk. We've shifted the boundary, essentially, of our enterprise computing environment to many orders of magnitude more contact points and ends of service, points of service throughout the community and maybe even throughout the world. So we have a strategy, an IT strategy. It may not be protected end to end, even if it was protected end to end before. We have new problems with the work from home strategy that are providing opportunities for spear phishing and the introduction of malware into networks. So as we have moved all of these endpoint devices out into wherever our people are working, mostly from home and off of home networks, maybe with VPNs, hopefully with VPNs, but we have still introduced new opportunities for spear phishing to attack people. And part of that comes from our cyber criminals having a very highly attuned sense of knowing what kind of a problem to put into an email to get us to click on a link. And in spite of, one of the things we know from the research that we've done over the past 20 years in different venues is that social engineering almost works, it works 100% of the time on somebody. And this is what they're relying on. If you are, here's an appeal for medical equipment. Anytime a social engineer can put a really big problem in front of somebody and create a sense of urgency, we will, as human beings, we are wired to try to solve those problems. And this is why social engineering and people clicking on links always works. So we have a brand new opportunity of problems and fears and urgency and crisis that makes it just so much easier for people to start to get these emails even in greater frequency. Now, how does this relate to Otix? Files are even a greater vector for malicious malware than they have been before. They were already a big vector. So as files become that gigantic vector, and we have this ransomware strategy that is so popular because it generates a lot of income for a relatively small amount of effort, we have a increased urgency now to focus on a file-based strategy for malware prevention. Because, to be honest, this is a terrible time for municipal services and critical infrastructure services to be hit with an attack, whether it's a hospital, whether it's first responders, whether it's anything in the municipal arena of services. This is just the worst possible time. So people will be much more pressed to consider paying a ransom, and our attackers and the criminals know that. I want to do a very brief review of what Otix, that's a problem. Now let's shift to something that I think is the good news, because I'm so excited about this technology, and the reason I agreed to work with Otix is because I saw this as absolutely game-changing technology. And that is that it is a process that removes all malicious code that's hidden within files, no matter how deeply nested that malicious code might be. And there's a detailed presentation, as I mentioned, that describes all of this, and we don't have time to go through it today. But there are algorithms that essentially will take thousands of MIME types of files, look inside the file. If it detects foreign code within that file, it essentially surgically extracts it so that any malicious code in the file is deactivated. It works with all kinds of files. The files, one of the best things about this is the files retain their original functionality. So if you have a public FTP site or something where individuals are needing to upload information, even if that information is contaminated, if there is if the NetFolder product is in place and it can take a look at that file, it can clean it so that it can continue to be used if that fits the policy of the receiver. So it's a very easy thing to integrate. It really easy as zero in terms of integration, and you have a lot of flexibility with implementing your own security policy, as well as having this very powerful file cleaning capability. Now, why am I so super excited about this? We have tons of actual antivirus, anti-malware products out there on the marketplace. What makes CDR so different is that it handles the zero-day attacks. So while all these zero-day attacks that you see on the screen here, WannaCry, Emotet, Grand Crab, those companies that had essentially the antivirus or the sandbox technology got hit anyway with those particular zero-day attacks. The cool part is with CDR in place, because CDR essentially extracts the malicious code out of the file, none of the clients that Otix had in play or had CDR in place, the true CDR in place, got hit with any of those 0 days. So there's really great field testing, field proof and testimonial about the effectiveness of this in reality. So I want to make sure there's time for questions, but what I really want to make sure you are aware of is what Otix has offered to the Alliance is a free license for NetFolder for 2 months with no cancellation fee. So basically what that means is with 48 hours notice, we can get NetFolder installed for you in a half a day. It's that easy to get it put in place. If anybody's interested in testing this and trying this, you can get that 2-month trial, and you'll have local support so we can help you get on the most out of it. And there's all kinds of elements with the management server that you can implement your policy and see how this actually works to add a layer of protection in this critical time. So that's their offer. And why Otix? Well, why do I work with Otix? I am so impressed with I've been in the cybersecurity industry for 30 years. I'm so impressed with their technical acuity and their understanding of what it takes to build a hardened platform that cannot be compromised by an attacker. And they have stood by that and done some incredible engineering to make this very solid and reliable as a security appliance and a security service. They provide visibility, monitoring. They provide first-rate execution services, and the technology just works. So I'm pleased to be a part of their wheelhouse and to be able to present this to you today. And these are the contacts that are out there if you want to get in touch with anyone. I'm of course available here locally. Our VP of Sales, Gilad Savion, he is in New York, and that's his phone number, direct phone number. You can also contact us via the info line at odix.com. And that's my presentation.
So Karen, this is Tim McCain. A quick question. This is quite intriguing, and for anybody who's on the call who isn't aware of some of the risks that Karen's speaking to, actually Emotet is hands down probably one of the biggest ransomware attacks being used payload-wise towards state, local, territorial, and tribal right now. But with that, Karen, so this trial, what exactly does that give somebody? I mean, when we're talking about, the content disarm, that whole CDR world, how would we look at utilizing this within the context of, secure email gateways? You had referenced, secure FTP. Obviously, a lot of cities, we have to pull in stuff for CORA, or sunshine laws, requests for information. We have to deal with a lot of RFP submissions. And generally, people just send us stuff. We get some wackadoos, if we're being honest, sending us stuff, and my office gets that all the time. We don't really have a way to go through that without trying to sandbox it somewhere. So are all of those use cases kind of covered under here, or just one? Or
yes, they all are.
Okay.
And there's multiple different ways of approaching it, but basically think of this as any file. You can use this for any file in transit. So any file that has to move across the network. You can also run files through it that are not in transit. So for example, if there's a file share, I know that that there was a municipality that was hit hard with ransomware last year. They paid the ransom, and then they brought Otix in to do the cleanup, because here's the other piece of it. Not only do you have to kind of look at those files in transit, but you have to clean the files that are laying out there that are infected but aren't actually moving around and coming together. And the other place where this is really strong is on those things called split attacks. And I don't know if people are really aware of this, but they're really nefarious. And that is, these fragments of malware can come in under the radar and be completely undetected by your antivirus or your sandbox because they don't look like anything. And once all of those fragments that over a period of time assemble on your network, they have the intelligence to find each other and assemble the final version with a payload and launch an attack from inside your network. So this can find that as well.
And if I may add to Karen, it's Gilad from Otix. In the system, you have the ability to choose what are the libraries or what are the folders, because you mentioned a lot of traffic, and we definitely see it with other customers, other municipalities, a lot of new procurement, a lot of vendors to manage now, a lot of legal aspect. So what you can do in the system itself, you can choose what are the folders you wish that the net folder solution will scan it on a automatically base, meaning every change. So by that, you will be able to choose which are the, what we're calling the most vulnerable places or the most active ones that you choose them to do it constantly. The management system or the management of the Otix is very simple. You just have to choose the directories while we doing everything automatically. We're importing the all the users from the Active Directory. And as Karen mentioned, it's 3-4 hours implementation. The system is solid, it's smooth, not too many issues, and it's doing the work at the end of the day. So we definitely coming, and thanks to Karen, by the way, in other municipalities we're working now, we managed to come up with policies, because I think that we as a vendor, we're a tool. And what is more important, the people like Karen that coming and brings along with that the policy on top of that, and that helps to governance and control the data and eventually to create a very secure environment, because every municipality will pay any amount of ransom now if they're going to be attacked, especially now when everyone in home. So
if you have any other questions too, just feel free to zip me an email and I'll get right back to you.